Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the FeaturesTalk podcast live, where we are bringing the voices from every corner of the automotive technology world to empower you with the knowledge that matters the most. And so, joining me back for season 3 premiere is our product specialist, Luke Versput. Welcome back, Luke.
Oh, thank you. Starting off 26, starting off 2026 the right way.
Yeah, we are.
More new stuff. The car industry keeps moving forward. Technology keeps moving forward, and we're doing everything we can to stay right there with it. And 2026 is shaping up to be a big year. It's going to shaping up to be a big year of new car releases, new changes in the automotive industry, and a lot of new technology.
Yeah.
Especially with stuff we've talked about before, like EVs and things like that. So it's gonna be a big year. So
Oh, yeah.
at Features First, we're starting it off the right way.
I have to agree. We kicked off. Well, I mean, you kind of have to keep up with CES as well. The Consumer Electronics Show. They're coming with all the bells and whistles, and
Oh
so
yeah.
I felt like we need to kick it off and let's look at the future, but then let's go ahead and paint the picture of where we are right now. And
Mhm.
so I'm excited to do that with our guest today. So last week we opened season 3 by looking at the engineering, the dream of mobility, and we kind of gave you guys a CES recap. We talked about collaborative intelligence, the incredible sensors that are designed to watch over us. But today, we are going to bridge two very specific knowledge gaps. And
Mm.
for our drivers, we're really going to help you navigate the confusing world right now of repairing and maintaining high safety features, ADAS, and other automated systems that are in your car, which is very important. If you're purchasing
Wow.
this, you need to know how it needs to be repaired and maintained. And so we also have engineers that are listening in today. And so today we're going to talk about how you get involved in building the talent pipeline that keeps the technology that you guys really care about alive. And so to have this conversation, we invited a guest who has spent 20 years fighting for safety on every front. I am honored to welcome Katie Mueller Harris to Features Talk podcast.
Thank you, guys.
Yes. Katie has been a mobility advocate for over 20 years. And as a fatality crash survivor,
Mm.
safety is at the forefront of really all of her work. You can see it, and it really is a beautiful thing to watch. She specializes in developing and implementing evidence based countermeasure programs to advance safe mobility for all. Katie is currently the executive director of workforce development for On the Road Companies, where she's leading workforce development in the advanced automotive sector. So
Mm.
I am excited to host you today. I'm honored to have you today. So thank you for joining us, Katie.
Thank you, Lisa and Luke. I'm thrilled to be here. Honored to have this conversation and just really proud of the work that you guys are doing and happy to be part of it.
Oh, thank you. I feel like we are a team of Avengers. Every person we invite on the podcast is aligning on the mission somehow. Like they're a piece of the puzzle. So I think it's super cool.
Mhm.
We love to start the podcast. We love to have organic conversation because we have a mix of listeners. We have engineers and some of our business partners, and then we have teenagers and drivers that are listening. So I want them to have a chance to get to know you. So I have an icebreaker question.
Great,
So
great.
for over 10 years, you've been a titan in the world of safety policy, because we didn't talk about that, helping write rules at the National Safety Council. And so you're also a survivor. So you know firsthand what happens when the system fails. And so recently, you made a massive shift, moving from writing policy to building the workforce at On the Road Companies. What made you say, I need to contribute here and make an impact here?
Yeah. Well, my career has really been focused on safety, and because that's what I knew growing up, I knew how that a car crash impacted my life, and I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to make a difference, and for me, that was working in the regulatory space and working on programs and policies that you can, you know, change. We can change policy. We can make improvements. We can build programs that are evidence-based, that make a difference, that save lives. And so whenever I came to On the Road, the opportunity came to me really because their company is aligned in safety, and the partnerships in the industry, were one of the things that made me interested in the work that they were doing, because the automotive industry is innovating so incredibly fast.
Yes.
And so we need to be able to build programs and policy, frankly, faster than we ever have before in order to keep up. And so I was thrilled to be able to kind of meld the two together in this position, and we still do a little bit of policy work, a little bit of advocacy work, but at the same, like you said, everything is really, really on that foundation of high tide lifts all boats. Let's do things the right way and contribute to an environment of safety. And I think that in the industry, for the most part, everyone wants to do the right thing, but we're innovating really, really fast. And so we have to have programs and policies that are adaptable and flexible and can kind of move as the industry evolves. Working in a company like On the Road, it's a little bit easier to do that than in government. The speed of government is a little laggy.
A little
laggy. Not necessarily, we need that policy to guide us, but at the same time, I wanted to be part of really innovative things that can move a little bit faster.
I see that as a theme throughout the whole entire industry, actually. I mean, I see that even at the engineering level, engineers that have worked for legacy companies, legacy OEMs, and they're like, look, I see what's happening. I want to be innovative. And so they're going off and creating their own solutions, and they're giving themselves the permission to be innovative and ride the wave. And so you have a front row, honestly, to the talent pipeline right now. And so my first question to you is, are we facing a skills gap, based on what you see, especially when you think about a customer, when we are being presented with such high tech vehicles today, whether it's ADAS or an EV, thinking about the service industry, are we ready to maintain this, or are we kind of playing catch up?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And because the industry is innovating so fast, we see that 7% of vehicles have some form of ADAS, some advanced driver assistance system in them. Even my 2019 Tahoe has lane departure warning and, blind spot detection, automatic emergency braking. Those features that we don't think about being advanced are on almost every vehicle that we have on the road today. And so when we talk about who works on those vehicles, the technicians in the automotive repair sector, there is a huge talent shortfall. We're talking 800,000 technicians needed. Like, that's just to keep up with the current pace. Wow. So when you look at the training that's needed on top of that shortage, yes, we have a shortage. There is a training gap. And we have an aging workforce. I think that's another thing. One of the things that we talked about before this, we were just chatting before the show, that generational knowledge of, traditional mechanic work is aging. And individuals who are coming into the career, that we try to help them understand that this isn't your grandfather's garage anymore. We have software defined vehicles now that require electronic work that, people in the industry 30 years ago didn't even dream about, And so, yes, we have a talent problem, but we have great opportunity, and we really, again, opportunity for innovation at every level, the OEM level, the education level, the work experience level, which we try to contribute to that. But all of these are, not, it's not something that we can't overcome. We just have to be
Of
better.
course.
We have to be
course.
more strategic.
Yeah. And is the 800,000, is that nationally, you mean?
That's nationally. Yeah.
Nationally. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That is
that
is significant.
If you look at repair shops and automotive service providers across the country, everyone is hiring. Everyone is looking for technicians. They're also looking for experienced technicians. How do you get experience? It's hard for people who are wanting to get hired to get experience if the jobs require 3 years of experience. That's a whole nother podcast.
Right.
But, we've got to think about hiring and kind of learning a little bit different.
Yeah. No, I agree. It speaks of there's a shift. It's happening not just in the automotive world, but everywhere. And so it seems like, I'm just being reminded of there was an event that happened and we needed a lot of soldiers, but there was not enough. And they started to call on some of the vets to come out of their veteran status and said, hey, can you come back? So it's almost like all hands on deck right now. So how do we pull the vet technicians into this training that needs to happen? And then how do we grab the younger teens that are thinking about, oh, I love cars. What does cars look like 5 to 10 years from now? And so we're talking about, this new collar worker, that word is kind of floating around. But can you tell us right now, especially like for on the road companies, tell us about the new collar worker training that you guys are offering. How do you take someone who might not have a traditional tech background and equip them to work on an autonomous truck or complex ADAS systems?
Yeah, great question. One of the things that we do is we work very closely with industry and understanding what are the types of positions, what are the types of skills that they need. Is it a traditional body mechanic? Is it an HVAC tech? Is it welding? Is it soldering? Is it electronic LiDAR repair? All of these things, we have to understand what the industry needs because they are innovating and moving so fast. We need to be able to reskill and upskill folks to be able to work on what the industry is providing us, and so we are learning all the time. We are learning from the industry. We have some great, what we call sector partnerships in Texas, where we mostly work. And they help us understand. We invite stakeholders, OEMs, service providers, students, instructors to the table and ask them, what are you seeing in the real world? What are you seeing beyond the classroom? What are you seeing beyond what students can read, and learn in the classroom? And how do we put that into our shop training? And we do that. We are very, we believe in work-based training. So we believe in training on the job training, paid apprenticeships, registered apprenticeships, really that work-based training that you need in addition to university or trade school or whatever kind of that traditional path is. You need that hands-on experience, right? Internships, things like that. And we think that reskilling is an important thing. You might have someone with 10 years of experience in traditional body repair and they want to learn soldering. They want to learn aluminum welding, or something like that. So we give individuals in our work-based training program opportunities to be exposed to all of those things. They might want to learn, battery repair, EV repair. And so we think the industry as a whole needs to invest in that reskilling because we don't have enough people. We know that we don't have enough people. We don't to fill the jobs that are needed. So let's think outside the box a little bit and think about what are the skills that we need, not necessarily what are the jobs that are currently out there, or, you know, what are the same jobs that we've had the last 30 years, because it's changing. Right.
Yep.
And so we have to change how we train people.
Yeah, that is why we exist. Because I identified a training gap, you know, and training is so far ingrained in my corporate background that that's a separate conversation, but training affects every industry. And so we saw the gap where, hey, at the dealership, what does ADAS training look like? We're talking about software defined vehicles. What does that training look like for the customer? You know, you've got your sales team and you've got your product specialists, which is amazing. That's why Luke's here, because I want our audience to know that there are product specialists that are at the dealership to help you navigate some of these ADAS systems and understand what you're buying. But then there's also that responsibility that you talked about in one of your recent podcasts with Rev, about the responsibility that we all have to educate ourselves. And that responsibility falls at the training level, at the school level, at the repair shop level. And so it's very interesting how we are all feeling this shift and trying to figure out, you know, how best can we serve? How best can we improve? And so can you explain the link between workforce training and driver safety? Because I feel like that needs to be connected. Why does a better trained workforce translate to a safer car for me as a mom with a teen driver? Because that is so important.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's interesting coming from the safety side of things, because I've been able to.
Did it freeze there for a second?
Just a bit. She'll come back with us.
Yeah. I like the phrase reskill and upskill. I like that. That's such a good way to put it. I hadn't heard that before.
It's happening at a definitely at a macro level. When you think about what we're discussing today, you know, the repair, just the question I just asked Katie, you know, linking that idea of a better workforce who's trained. What does that mean for me as a safe driver? Because I do think when you're purchasing your car, we are, as consumers, trying to make a decision about, is the car safe? We talked about this on a podcast before. Is the car safe? What's the 5-star safety rating? Does it have the features that I need? But we also talk about repair and maintenance. So, you know, going to the dealership and understanding what that process looks like. If you have ADAS or advanced complex technologies in your car and they are not calibrated correctly, or maybe you go to a shop that's not necessarily familiar with that repair process, and then you as the driver or the owner really doesn't know the importance of it, or doesn't even know that calibration exists. You think you're just getting an oil change, but there's so much more happening in the back with your vehicle that is linked to your safety on the road. So if the system is calibrated incorrectly, that means the system could assume that maybe you are a certain distance from an object or an obstacle when you're really closer. So then the system doesn't kick in when it should. So that link is very important, I think, for consumers to understand that we definitely need to make sure that where you're taking your vehicle to get serviced and repaired, that they are credentialed in ADAS calibration. And most drivers right now, and I'm pretty sure you see this, Luke, they're bringing their cars back at the dealer level to the dealership they purchased it from.
Oh yeah, most often.
Yeah, they're staying with that. But when you think about the aftermarket, when you think about you know,
just the normal repair shops down the street that someone's probably been, you know, bringing cars to for the last, you know, 40, 50 years.
Exactly.
So yeah, when you get a traditional car, if you can, maybe just let her know. Maybe if she just reopens the link, maybe it'll get her back in. But
she's working on it now.
Okay, yeah, it looks like it's going. But yeah, when if you get like a traditional car, so I mean, not even a really like an old classic, but yeah, if you get a traditional car, I mean, your options are, I mean, depending on what area you live in, I mean, gosh, your options could be, one every couple blocks that you could, bring a car into some kind of mechanic, some kind of repair shop, or even just like a somewhere to get like a just like a normal part, like an oil filter or an air filter or something like that. Um, and like there's an AutoZone about a 5 to 7 minute walk from my house. If I had to go and get an oil filter, I could walk down there and just do that. But if you get a modern EV, well, now you don't need oil filters. But then when it comes to um, repairing things like advanced safety features, ADAS features, or an EV, even getting really into the weeds of it, like an entire EV battery or something like that. Well, now your options for where you can take that vehicle have just narrowed like exponentially,
Mm-hmm.
and it does almost limit you to the dealership that you bought it from.
Correct.
And
Correct.
and then, and if you buy one pre-owned, if you buy say a pre-owned EV of any kind, then whether you buy it private party or buy it from some kind of dealer that does only used cars, um, you know, then it's like, well, a used car dealer. If you think of a used car dealer, they probably don't have an entire workforce of like certified EV repair people
Well, exactly.
or those kinds of engineers or technicians. And so then even if you buy like a pre-owned one outside of the first party, like dealer network, you do then kind of limit yourself to dealers who have certified technicians for those kinds of features and vehicles. And so
Exactly.
it really narrows where those vehicles can be worked on.
Exactly. And that's where we were talking with Katie today, specifically about on the road companies and how they are bridging that gap. Because before she got cut off, she was talking about looking at training. So now that we have identified this gap, right? And we actually do not have enough technicians to service these kind of cars. It's
Mhm.
about getting very innovative on how we pull the current technicians in wherever they're at, train them so that they can start servicing, some of these vehicles. And so that's the gap that has been identified. I don't think at the consumer level, it's a very known fact that we don't have enough technicians to care for our
I don't
cars.
think so. Yeah.
I don't think the average person is thinking about it until they have to get it fixed,
Right.
until it's an inconvenience where maybe they're traveling and they are not near their dealership. Where can you go if something happens to your car? You have these high-tech safety features. So
Mhm.
it's one of those, like, you just don't know until you know, right?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Because coming from a car without those kind of more modern features, and that kind of more modern technology, it's like, when would you ever have to worry about that? Never.
Exactly.
And so I think one couldn't be blamed for all of a sudden realizing I couldn't blame someone for being caught off guard by that. If if once they have their first foray into that kind of modern vehicle.
Yeah, it's definitely a shift for all of us to understand, on the engineering side and then also on the consumer side. I
Mhm.
believe we have Katie back. Hi, can you hear us?
Hey, everybody.
Okay, awesome. We just kept the conversation going. We were talking more on the
Okay,
consumer.
now I can't hear you again.
Uh-oh. Can you hear us?
Yeah, just make sure the audio output is the same speaker that you were using before.
I'm gonna try this really quick.
Okay.
How about that? Can you hear me now?
Yes. Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Oh,
I think her
sounded like it was going to work there for a second.
you're back. Can you hear us?
That's fine.
Yes?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
I
awesome.
can
Good,
see and
good,
hear
good,
you
good.
guys.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I
Well,
don't even
welcome
know
back.
where I stopped because I just kept talking and then you guys went away.
It's okay. It's technology. I mean, we're talking about tech right now. It fails.
Right?
So welcome to the new era of automation and technology.
Oh yeah.
And it fails, and you have to figure out how to just adjust. And this
I
is
know
what
that
we
you're
do.
a pro. I know that you're a pro.
This is what we do. So I'm going to go ahead and just re-ask that question that I asked. We were talking about how you guys take someone from, and then we went into, can you explain the link between the workforce training and driver safety?
Yeah, absolutely. So in my former positions, I've really been on the helm of safety, both for driver behavior, and we follow what's called the safe system approach. I'm sure that you all are familiar. And so it's really based on safe drivers, which is where driver training and behavioral, safe roads, which is engineering heavy. And then we have safe vehicles, as well as post crash care. So we fall in the safe vehicles part of the safe system. And what happened is we expect when we are driving or when we're giving our teenagers the keys and operational as it's intended, right? And so it's really our job and the industry's job to make sure that that happens, whether it's before maintenance, after maintenance, all of the investment that OEMs have made in this amazing technology is only as good as the people who use it and hopefully don't turn it off. And then, you know, those who repair it and make it safe for us to drive after maintenance or repair.
No, that makes sense. So in an ideal world, what do you say should be the repair process? What does that look like from the customer's perspective? And I'm thinking about even just like documentation or communication. What should that look like?
Consumer education is one of the things that I'm most passionate about. You know, we talked about My Car Does What, which is a program of the National Safety Council, and brilliant, I think. And we need to do more of that. I think you guys are kind of leading the show there, and kudos to you because it's incredibly needed. And drivers generally don't understand the vehicle features. You know, you don't get a class, or maybe you might get at the dealership a salesperson or a general manager who is passionate about it and takes the time to both understand and relay that information to the customer. But most of the time you don't. This is, you know, goes all the way back. My teenagers are almost grown now. Before my 18-year-old was born, I am like the worst nightmare of a dealership and a repair shop because I am ready with the questions.
I bet you are. They don't want to see you coming, Katie.
And when he was born, you know, lower anchors and tethers, car seats were just coming out. And so I was asking all these questions about the lower anchors and the tethers and how the seatbelts were working and why was the tether all the way across the back of the seat. And the salesperson is like, who is this person? You know, but that's our job, right?
See, you are the chief safety officer. That is what Pam Shadle Fisher from GHSA will call you. So you are holding down the fort for that job.
That is so funny.
I welcome people like that personally.
Yeah, there needs to be more of
do.
us. Yeah. And I mean, think about the investment that we're making in a vehicle, you know, as a consumer. And it's a huge decision and a huge purchase, you know, for most families. And we're putting our most beloved possessions, our family and our friends in them. And so we are counting on that technology to work and to work correctly. And so I think that when it comes to repair, don't be afraid to ask questions. You know, don't be afraid to go into the shop. Even, you know, it's a little bit intimidating if you are, you know, traditional male dominated occupation and, environment for a female to go in and ask questions. But please ask questions, know the features of your vehicle. And even if you don't know what questions to ask, when you take your car in, ask them things like, what features need to be repaired? Are there ADAS features involved in this repair? Are there, do you have technicians who are trained in ADAS, or are you going to send it somewhere else? A lot of times companies are subletting the ADAS calibration elsewhere, and that's fine, but that needs to be explained to the customer upfront, and they need to understand that, what that process looks like. Are they taking it off site? Are they doing it on site? If they're doing it on site, do they have the correct equipment? Do they have the correct, I think opportunity that we have for this is for all of that communication to happen up front.
Yes.
Not in the middle of the repair, not at the end of the repair. So all your scan, your pre-scan, your post-scan, any calibrations that might be needed, even if they're not, should be on your original estimate. So that should be included in the price. And then if you don't need it, fantastic. Everyone saves money. But that shouldn't be the last thing that happens to the vehicle. So I would say, as a consumer, just look for that. Look for that on your estimate, and then call and ask questions. If you know your vehicle has blind spot detection, if you have a little light on your mirror, or if that's an ADAS feature. And so don't be afraid to ask questions. Is your staff trained on ADAS? Is this included in my estimate? If it's not, it needs to be. But often, insurance companies kind of run the repair process. So, ask those questions to your insurance company as well, and your insurance adjuster, if they're the ones who are kind of designating what is happening with the vehicle. That's, again, a whole nother conversation for another day. But don't be afraid to ask questions. Know your vehicle, and you just want to understand what's happening with your vehicle, and you definitely have the right to do that.
I think there's three things that I heard that are so important to take from what you just said. Number one, know your car. Know that you have ADAS in your car. Number two, understand the link to safety. So if she said the word calibrate, and we have done some education on a calibration and the whole repair process. So if you're listening, go back and look at that, because we did a deep dive for you to understand the importance of calibration, what calibration is. So that is something that you need to become familiar with as you are purchasing any new vehicle. The word calibration, you need to be aware of that and how that is really aligned with that repair process that Katie was just talking about. So then you understand if there is a system that is not calibrated correctly, you are not necessarily driving as safe as you can. And for me, as a consumer who spent money, that's going to be a problem.
Yeah, we want those features. And they provide amazing safety benefits. That's why they are there. They help prevent crashes. They help us, keep from making our mistakes, injuries, and deaths, because as humans, we make mistakes all day long, even when we're driving.
Right.
And so ADAS is not meant to, make, it's not AV. Help minimize those mistakes and the mistakes of others, and help you be a better driver. But yeah, we have to understand the features. We have to understand, it's really incumbent on shops, obviously, to have their personnel trained and understand that every person involved in that repair process may touch an ADAS feature. Right. And they need to understand, paint needs to understand how that affects the features of ADAS. Glass needs to understand how the work that they're doing impacts ADAS features, and all of that be coordinated appropriately in the shop. A lot of organizations do this brilliantly. But a lot of organizations don't.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, steps can be skipped, and no one knows
Right.
until a crash happens.
Right.
And so it's incumbent on all of us to know those features and ask the questions.
Yep. That was the third thing. Ask the questions. Don't be afraid to ask the questions.
Yeah.
So my next question is, because we're talking about right now, how do we bridge this gap, and really education starting at the beginning of the process? You said with the repair, don't tell them in the middle or the end, really get them at the beginning. I also think about it, the dealer. So the salesperson, kind of sells that dream. I know you're here for this. We've got exactly what you need. And the driver's using the tech, and then the tech fixes it, right? But often these three groups don't speak the same language. So how do you think we can ensure that the person selling the car understands the complexity of repairing it, step number one, so then they can set the right expectations for the owner?
Yeah, this is such a hard conversation, and I know you guys know it. Finger pointing doesn't serve anyone. And so I think that as a whole, the industry, we need to start from the beginning, and things like standard language. So remember I said, like, manufacturers are innovating really, really fast, right? Everybody's trying to come up with something bigger, something better, something faster, something smarter, and calling it all kinds of different things, right? Because we live in a capitalist society, and so everybody's trying to make money. I look back at the time whenever I worked in the car seat world, and at the time, car seats, the chest clip on car seats were being innovated all over the place. And so in the instruction manual, everyone was calling car seats chest clips on car seats something different. Same with airbags. When you look at a vehicle and the airbag markings may say airbag, it might say SRS, which is supplemental restraint system. It might say, all kinds of different acronyms. Okay. There isn't standard language. There should be standard language for safety features, and that includes ADAS features. So are we calling it lane centering? Are we calling it lane departure warning? Are we calling it, blind spot detection, or are we calling it something else? So from a 50,000 foot level, we need to start there. And I know there are a lot of great organizations working on this at the federal level.
Yes.
Advocates all over the place. But standard language would go a long way to help the salesperson, the parent, the consumer understand those features a little bit better.
Yeah, I agree.
My dream is safety is Switzerland, right? So we can compete all day long about, who's faster, who's smarter, who's, making this better and this better and this better. But safety features should be Switzerland, and we should be able to agree on calling them similar things so that consumers aren't like navigating this world of confusing terminology. And I know they're working on it. Lots of really, really smart people, way smarter than me, are working on this. But I think that will go a long way.
We've had a lot of discussions about that on previous episodes about the about all the different terminologies. We've had, I think, at least one episode actually dedicated to ADAS terminology.
Yeah. And so I think plain language goes a long way. And then I think taking ownership of that educational role is really important for everybody. Whether it's the dealer, whether it's the repairer, whether it's the consumer, taking responsibility for knowing those features and knowing and not turning them off. I read an article recently from Boston Consulting Group that said that OEMs are having a hard time ascertaining some of the benefits of these advanced features because people are turning them off prior to crash. And so if they turn them off, then we can't measure their effectiveness, right? And so we need consumers to, technology is difficult, right? And change is hard. I grew up in rural Western Oklahoma on a ranch, and my granddad buckled his seatbelt behind his back on the ranch because he didn't want the seatbelt dinging. Right? And so we know that technology can be annoying. Like it can be distracting. There's lots of conversations happening about that right now. Kind of limiting those distractions. but we have to understand, take full advantages of the benefits that the safety features can provide. And I think that if we understand more about the technology, we can begin to understand more about the benefits, and then, hopefully become better consumers and better users of the technology.
Yeah,
I agree.
that's been a huge thing for me. Obviously, like with being a product specialist, I was clarifying to Katie earlier, for all my know-how of like cars and technology and that stuff, I don't really have a lot of hands-on experience of actually like taking cars apart and working on them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one in like a traditional sense, but also like let alone even in terms of like advanced ADAS stuff. I've never like I know how all the inner workings work, but like I was saying earlier, like if you give me a car that's not working and gave me all the tools I would need, and even give me a lift or whatever else, and said take it apart and fix it, I would be like, I don't really have experience in it. I didn't really grow up like wrenching on cars, and so so that I'm not quite as familiar with. But as far as like how the safety systems work and everything, now that is obviously where that's where I'm like more focused on. And all the time I've like in my day-to-day, so many times customers have asked how to turn off a particular feature.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the most common one is lane departure warning.
Oh yeah.
And
I hate that one.
because they don't like the sound it makes. And I will say this, less and less people are bothered by the sound, but a lot of people are bothered by what is often in place, which is the automatic steering correction, where even if it moves the wheel all of that much just to make sure you stay in your lane, people don't want it. And so many times people have asked, like, how do you turn that off? And I always answer by saying, it is possible to turn it off. Just out of curiosity, why is it that you would, what is it about it that makes you want to disable it? And they say like, oh, I just don't like the steering intervention. Or I really don't like the sound. And what a lot of modern cars have now is the ability to actually tweak how the safety system behaves instead of just outright turning it off. And so I vehemently recommend to people, leave everything on, leave the sound on, leave the steering correction on. The one response you kind of have to be careful of is if someone asks, like, how do I turn off that beeping or that weird steering thing when I try to change lanes? The one kind of response you have to be careful of is the best way to turn that off is use your turn signal. That's the most effective way to turn off.
I'm going to use that.
Yeah.
I'm going to look.
Right, it's good, right? The most effective way to keep that feature from being annoying is use your turn signal. Now, in a customer service position, you kind of have to be careful how you word that, and so I don't often say that, but it's that's the kind of thing that I always impart to people is that there are levels that you can tweak how it behaves, and so if someone this has happened sometimes, if someone just tooth and nail does not want the steering to intervene, however safe it is, I understand that perspective. I do. And I don't think it's an unreasonable thing to be annoyed by any kind of self-steering. And I will tell them, look, you can disable this. You can disable the steering, but they're entirely fine with leaving the sound or leaving a vibration of the steering wheel. And that to me is like, that's a win. Like, okay,
that is a win.
It's a great solution. Yes.
Yeah. So like they're driving around and like, if something happened to them somehow in the car, if maybe something medically happened and they were unconscious and couldn't handle the wheel, the car would just drift out of its lane. So like, but that is such a rare occurrence that I'm not, that I wouldn't lose sleep over. But it does mean that if there's somehow, not paying attention and then all of a sudden, and they hear that, and then that'll get them to look up and, and so like, okay, that's cool. And there's been a lot of people that I've been able to just it just takes a little bit of education. Maybe a third of the time that I've taken talking about it here, just a little bit, just so they know how it works. And they're like, okay, that I can live with. And
what you're describing, Luke, is exactly that bridge that we were just talking about, even though we were specifically talking about it towards the repair process. You as the product specialist at the dealer, taking the time, just that little bit of time to educate that consumer on not whether you can turn it on or off, how can I personalize this tech to respond in a way that would be normal for me. That's the whole point of the tech is I mean, we talked about this in the episode just previously with Jason, how the designers are bringing in this personalization level to the technology to kind of mimic, your natural driving. So what you're doing essentially as a product specialist is showing that customer how to do that. And then if we just used a little bit of extra time to talk about, okay, now let's not forget about the repair of these. Just imagine how educated that consumer will get to the repair shop and be able to talk and have that dialogue with Katie, what you're talking about with understanding the calibration and then the costs associated with all these things. And so what I'm hearing is it really is going to take all of us if you think about the customer journey, at every customer journey, the point in that journey, there needs to be some education. And then that education needs to be consistent to basically back, Katie, what you just said, with some standard language. So that by the time the consumer gets through the journey, they're not confused as to what the heck is going on.
Yeah. And so often I think consumers just want to know that they have an option, right?
Yes.
And I mean, what a great thing that OEMs are doing to be able to provide that option. You know, do you want a beep and a vibrate or just vibrate? Do you want, your dash, lighting to be lower where it's not so much of a distraction? We think consumers just want options, and kudos to those engineers and those of you who are working on vehicles to be able to provide that option. And I think as the technology evolves, it's only going to get better. And we're going to have more options and better options.
Right. And that's why I brought it up here, because like you said, Katie, it's the education is also on the when you talked about the on the salesperson, like with this, like, or Lisa said, like the salesperson like sells the dream of the car. And it's and part of making that is educating them about that. And it also then goes back to exactly what you had said, Katie, where auto manufacturers, I mean, as a whole, like the big corporations watching over all of it, but then also at the on the ground level, the actual technicians, how do they know what to fix if the feature was turned off when it could have been used? And so this is why I like to educate people on that. And that will still mean that if a crash does happen, the safety feature was still on. They didn't disable it. And so when it comes to people then working on that, it will give them an opportunity to actually do what they've been training to do. And as far as the people actually doing that, that does actually lead us into a very important thing that we got from one of our listeners about joining this new workforce of people who will, at that time, eventually be the ones working on that. A big part of our Features Talk podcast is we have a segment called Listener Lane. And we're very fortunate to have a real cool community of people watching, listening, and kind of engaging in the conversation. And we often get questions and comments from people wanting to be a topic of discussion or wanting more clarification on something. And since we were going to be talking about this and we kind of put that word out, we have a great question from actually a parent. They say, my teenager loves cars, but thinks the industry is old school. And what, Katie, would be your pitch to them to join this workforce of the future of people who can keep that technology working and evolving?
Yeah, such a great question. I too am a mom of a couple of teenage boys, and I think that the industry is an amazing place to start a career. And just what I said earlier, this is not your grandfather's garage anymore. There is great opportunity for those individuals who want to work on, body and diesel and some of the more traditional fuel, vehicles. But if this student can dream it, it's probably on the vehicle. So you want to work with the computer. We have a million different jobs that are working on electronics. If you're interested in, I think soldering is one of the things that has the most need right now. And soldering, think of it like it's welding with little tiny pieces of fiber. And so it's working on electric circuit boards and things like that power the entire vehicle. And so you want to do one of the most fun things that I get to do is work with automated vehicle manufacturers, and they're innovating all the time.
Mhm.
And a lot of them have remote operators. And so they literally, some of them operate or take over whenever needed from a computer laptop.
Yeah.
And so if there is a job that you think that you might, or if there is a type of thing that you like to do computer work, you like to do Legos, you like to do, take apart things and put them back together. I mean, Luke, I think you probably started because you liked cars and maybe you dreamed of having this job and maybe you didn't. If you want to work in marketing, there's a place for you in automotive. If you want to work in sales, there's a place for you, and so it's not your grandfather's garage anymore. And it's only going to get more high tech. Yep. We aren't going backwards anytime soon. Yep. So we're going to have more software defined vehicles. We're going to have more computer based operations. And so there's definitely a job for everyone. One of the things that I heard recently was that the jobs that my kids will have haven't been invented yet.
Yep.
And when they're my age.
Yeah.
And so I think
that's so true. Yeah.
Opportunities are endless. And just having an interest in the career can take you far. And it's exciting time to be in the industry.
Agreed. I have teenagers. They're not necessarily into cars like that, but I do have some family members that are younger, way younger than me. And I'm trying to steer them in that way of the EVs and the charging stations. I mean, we need people to fix the charging station. I'm like, there's a whole industries that are opening up, that are begging for people to come into it. So we are living in an interesting time in the world, but there's so much room for innovation. And I completely agree with what you said, Katie. And I also don't want to miss an opportunity for you to share also about the Autonomous Vehicle Workforce Development Program, which is a new program that I know On the Road companies launched. And Aurora is supporting you all in this, and you guys are being able to train workers for high growth technology focused careers. And so can you share a little bit about that and even how they can get involved?
Sure. We are really proud to work with all of our industry partners. But Aurora came to us, they are testing and operating driverless trucking operations from Dallas to Houston. And one of their terminals is based in the Dallas area. And so they came to us and said, can you help us develop a curriculum? We started with curriculum. And so we started looking at what are the skills that traditional automotive technicians have that can translate to work on these automated vehicles. Yeah. So we career mapped them, and we figured out what are the skills that can be easily transferable, or are there opportunities for additional learning, and where do students go to get education on LiDAR? If they're, we aren't really interested in, we know that there are lots of great other organizations who are working with engineers and working with, really advanced educational, occupations that require a lot of education. We're really looking to advance middle skill workers to be able to work in the industry. And so what they did is they helped us integrate those skills that they need for their technicians into our training programs at On the Road Garage. Oh, okay. And so our technicians are exposed to the LiDAR that they have in their trucks. Okay. And so they have the opportunity to hands-on learn with that LiDAR in our garages. And then they have the opportunity to go and, work at Aurora or work at Torque or work at any of the, automated vehicle manufacturers who are operating and looking for technicians who have experience working on their technology. I think we're going to need thousands of technicians who've been trained this way. And I think it's going to take us to think outside the box a little bit on how we can integrate what the industry needs in our current training programs. So that's really what we've done.
Wow.
And continue to do. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so in line with that, with the parent, this person who's a parent that asked us that question of like how, if they have a teenager who's interested in getting into it. And it makes sense, right? Like, a younger teenager now, like who would be interested in cars, like growing up with cars now, that will one day be the classics,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Exactly right.
and like, right, which is, I mean, it's odd to think about now, but you know, like there was a time when like what was classic to us now is, you know, was new back then. And the thing is, it makes sense to like, how do you get into that? I was asking Katie like before, like I never thought about, like, if you want to get into classic car restoration, you have over a century of know-how and older people that know. But like LiDAR, you mentioned LiDAR. Some consumer vehicles are shipping with LiDAR hardware, the sensors built into the car, but not yet the software update to activate them.
Yep.
So that's how much like LiDAR is kind of a big thing. So like, how does one get into that? There's not a century of know-how on that. And so that's such a cool thing. And it's right in line with that question of how do you get into that? Because someone younger, the cars are becoming more like phones and things like that, that we're used to. And that's such a cool thing. It's such a cool form of outreach to like give career paths to start on that. Because someone like me I don't have a background in working on cars, new or old. I never really stopped to think like, for new cars, how would you get into that? So that's super cool that that's in place.
When someone asks you, you know, would you be interested in doing this job? Just say yes. And, you know,
go for it, right?
Go for it. You know, you don't have to have, you know, I guarantee you whenever the next generation of LiDAR comes out, you know, that someone's working on right now, that comes out next week, no one is going to have experience working on that LiDAR. Exactly. And so it's going to take, you know, all of us just saying, yes, you know, we'll try it, you know, we'll work on it. We'll do kind of the evidence-based work that we know has worked in the past and build from there.
Oh yeah.
Slow down. And I think that companies just have to be willing to invest in training. We have to be willing to invest in our, you know, people who are interested in coming into the industry and saying yes to jobs, to people who want the job too. They might not have 5 years of experience, but who does? So be willing to invest in that worker.
I'm going to say something that Luke always says in the podcast, and I love it when he says it because it's really funny, but he gets close to the mic and he's like, say it for the people in the back. We need to invest in training. Okay.
Louder for those in the back.
Invest in training. Yeah.
We need to invest in training at every point of the customer journey, at every point of the engineer's journey. We need to invest in the training. I mean, I don't know how many times we need to say that. It is so important that we invest in the training. I completely agree with you. Katie, thank you so much for the work that you guys are doing at On the Road Companies. You guys are definitely, I heard what you said, who you're focused on. And it's very different. It's you guys are taking and bridging that gap of the people that are ready right now that can say yes and that can learn and bring that and bridge that gap. While there's other organizations that are working with higher tech and higher skilled engineers, there's a whole workforce that is available to us. And so I love that you guys are doing that. And I love the work that you're doing. And I'm glad that we were able to highlight that on the podcast. So next time you drop your car off, remember the person fixing it is as important as the person who built it. So ask the right questions. Don't be afraid to ask the questions. If you've got advanced tech, you need to know what's going on. If you found value in today's episode, make sure you follow, share it with a mother, share it with a teenager, share it with an engineer, share it so that we all understand that this is going to take a group effort for what we're trying to achieve in mobility and in the automotive and transportation world. And so make sure you're following us and sharing. Leave us a comment. Give us what your biggest takeaway was, because really what you guys let us know, what you want to learn is really what drives the content on this podcast. And so thank you so much for Katie joining, Luke joining us today. And I will tell you this, we are looking at the future of workforce being developed right before our eyes to take care of these advanced vehicle technologies. And it's a great time to be alive. So until next time, drive
safely.
Bye, guys.
Thank you, guys.